The grand assembly of galactic sciences had not seen such chaos in over 3,000 cycles. Senior researcher Velox of the Crystalline Collective stood at the central podium, his translucent body flickering with colors that showed his deep confusion. Around him, hundreds of alien scientists from dozens of species filled the circular chamber, their voices creating a storm of noise that the translation system struggled to process. Order, called High Coordinator Missina, a being of pure energy contained within a floating sphere. We must have order. Senior researcher Velox has the floor. The noise slowly died down, but the tension remained thick. Velox waited until the chamber was silent before speaking again. As I was saying, Velox continued, his voice carrying across the chamber through the translation systems, the survey team has confirmed what we first thought was an error in our sensors. The third planet of the Sol system, designated as a Class 7 Deathworld, has developed a spacefaring civilization. The chamber erupted once more. A Flotian delegate, a creature resembling a massive jellyfish filled with glowing gas, rose from its place. Impossible, it declared, its voice like wind chimes in a storm. Class 7 worlds cannot support the development of intelligent life, let alone technological civilization. The environmental pressures are too extreme. The data must be wrong. The data has been verified 17 times, Velox replied, his body turning a deeper shade of purple that indicated stress. I understand your disbelief. I shared it when I first received the reports, but there can be no mistake. The beings call themselves humans and they have achieved faster-than-light travel. In a quiet corner of the chamber, junior researcher Kella of the Soft Ones watched the proceedings with wide, dark eyes. Her species had evolved on one of the gentlest worlds in the known galaxy, where the weather never changed and predators had never existed. The very concept of a death world filled her with a fear she could barely contain. She turned to her mentor, senior scientist Gorvax, whose 6 legs clicked nervously against the floor. "How is this possible?" she whispered. "Everything we know about planetary evolution says this cannot happen." Gorvax's multiple eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought. That is precisely the question that has thrown our entire scientific community into confusion, young one. For millennia, we have believed that civilization can only emerge on stable worlds, worlds where the environment does not constantly try to kill its inhabitants. At the podium, Velox was now displaying holographic images that had been captured by long-range observation probes. The chamber fell silent as they looked upon the human homeworld for the first time. Earth appeared on the display, a blue and green sphere wrapped in swirling white clouds. To the untrained eye, it might have seemed beautiful, but every scientist in the room could see the danger hidden in that image. "Let us review the conditions on this world," Velox said, his voice now steady with the focus of scientific analysis. "The planet has a rotational period of approximately one of their days, creating constant and dramatic temperature shifts between the light and dark sides. The axial tilt is severe, resulting in what they call seasons, periods where entire regions of the planet experience extreme cold or extreme heat." Gasps of horror spread through the chamber. A warmling delegate, a species that could only survive within a 2-degree temperature range, fainted and had to be carried out by medical staff. "The weather patterns are chaotic and violent," Velox continued. "The planet experiences hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, floods, droughts, and electrical storms on a regular basis. The geological activity is equally dangerous. The surface is divided into massive plates that shift and grind against each other, causing earthquakes and volcanic eruptions." "And the life forms," someone called out. Velox changed the display, showing a series of images that made several delegates cry out in alarm. Massive creatures with rows of teeth swimming through dark waters, insects that could strip flesh from bone in moments, plants that produced deadly poisons, microscopic organisms that could kill within hours. The biosphere is a constant war of survival, Velox explained. Predators hunt prey. Prey develops defenses. Predators evolve to overcome those defenses. The cycle has continued for billions of years, producing creatures of remarkable danger and resilience. Kella felt sick. Her species had evolved in a world where the most dangerous creature was a small, furry animal that might occasionally bite if startled. The images she was seeing were like nightmares made real. And the humans evolved in this environment, asked a delegate from the thinking trees, a species of mobile plants known for their philosophical nature. Not only evolved, Velox said, his colors shifting to show amazement, but thrived. And here is where our understanding of evolution and civilization development completely breaks down. According to every model we have, intelligent life should not be able to develop under such conditions. The energy required for survival should leave no resources for the development of higher brain functions. High Coordinator Missina floated forward. Then how do you explain their existence, senior researcher? That is exactly what we must determine, Velox replied. I am proposing the formation of a special research committee to study this species. We must understand how they achieved what our science says is impossible. The implications for our understanding of life and civilization are enormous. The vote was unanimous. Every scientist in the chamber recognized the importance of this discovery. Within days, the greatest minds of 100 species would begin their study of humanity. None of them could have predicted how completely their understanding of the universe would be changed by what they learned. In the weeks that followed, the research committee gathered every piece of data they could find about Earth and its dominant species. They analyzed electromagnetic signals that the humans had been broadcasting into space for over a century. They studied the probes and satellites that humans had sent beyond their world. They observed, from a safe distance, the activities of human civilization. With each new piece of information, the mystery only deepened. Kella had been assigned to the biological analysis team, working under the direction of a brilliant but eccentric scientist named Professor Zeleth. Zeleth belonged to a species that existed as colonies of microscopic organisms, able to form different shapes as needed. Currently, they had arranged themselves into a rough humanoid form, which they had explained was an attempt to better understand their subjects. Look at this, Zeleth said, projecting a detailed image of human internal biology. Their bodies are constantly at war. Their immune systems fight off millions of invaders every day. Their cells are in a constant state of repair and replacement. They carry bacteria within their digestive systems that would be lethal to most species in the galaxy. Kella studied the image, her fear gradually being replaced by fascination. How do they survive? They adapt, Zeleth said. That seems to be the key to everything about this species. They adapt to everything. Their bodies adapt. Their behaviors adapt. Their societies adapt. It is as if the constant pressure of their environment has made adaptation itself their greatest trait. This observation would prove to be more important than anyone realized. It was the first step toward understanding the impossible achievement of human civilization. The research committee met in the same grand chamber 3 months after their formation, and the atmosphere was very different from the first meeting. The initial shock and disbelief had been replaced by a kind of stunned wonder. The data they had gathered painted a picture that challenged everything they thought they knew about how civilizations developed. Professor Zeleth took the podium first, their colony form shifting slightly as they organized their thoughts. My team has completed our analysis of human biology, they announced. What we have found is remarkable beyond anything we expected. The display behind them lit up with detailed diagrams. Humans are what we might call generalist predators. They are not the fastest, strongest, or most armored creatures on their planet. Individually, they are actually quite weak compared to many of the predators that share their world. But they have something that no other Earth species possesses to the same degree: endurance. The diagrams showed the human cardiovascular system, the arrangement of muscles, the structure of their legs. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, Zeleth explained. While other predators rely on speed and ambush, humans would simply follow their prey, walk after it for hours, for days if necessary. Their bodies can regulate temperature through sweating, a cooling system that allows them to remain active far longer than most creatures. They would literally walk their prey to death. A murmur of disbelief passed through the chamber. The quicklings, a species known for their incredible speed, seemed particularly disturbed by this information. But that is not all, Zeleth continued. Their endurance is not just physical, it is mental as well. Humans have developed a psychological trait that appears unique among known species. They call it determination or willpower or stubbornness. It is the ability to continue pursuing a goal despite pain, exhaustion, and seemingly impossible odds. Senior researcher Velox stepped forward. This connects directly to what my team has discovered about human history. Their path to civilization was not smooth or gradual. It was marked by constant catastrophe and recovery. The display changed to show a timeline of human history, marked with red indicators that seemed to cover almost every period. These red marks indicate major extinction events, disasters, and civilization collapses, Velox explained. Ice ages that covered much of their planet in frozen death, volcanic eruptions that blocked out their sun, plagues that killed significant portions of their population, wars that destroyed entire cities. The chamber was silent. Such a history of disaster would have ended any other species. The crystalline collective had nearly gone extinct from a single century of mild climate change. The Flotians had required 3,000 years to recover from a disease that had killed only 2% of their population. But look at what follows each disaster, Velox said, highlighting sections of the timeline. Recovery, adaptation, growth. After every catastrophe, human civilization does not just rebuild. It comes back stronger, more advanced, more resilient. It is as if the disasters themselves drive their progress. Kella raised a tentative hand. How is that possible? Our models show that disasters set civilization back. Resources are lost, knowledge is forgotten, populations are reduced. Velox turned to her with what might have been respect in his shifting colors. An excellent question, junior researcher. The answer seems to lie in how humans process and respond to trauma. They have developed something they call learning from mistakes. When disaster strikes, they study what went wrong. They create new systems to prevent similar disasters. They share this knowledge across their entire species through stories, writing, and now electronic networks. They turn their suffering into strength, Professor Zeleth added. Every predator that hunted them taught them how to make better weapons. Every disease that killed them taught them how to make better medicine. Every natural disaster that destroyed their homes taught them how to build stronger shelters. A new scientist took the podium. Researcher K. Valix was an expert in social structures, belonging to a hive species where individuality was nearly unknown. Their compound eyes reflected dozens of images as they spoke. My team has studied human social organization, K. Valix said. What we have found is perhaps the most confusing aspect of their civilization. Humans are simultaneously the most cooperative and the most competitive species we have ever observed. The display showed scenes from human history, armies marching to war, nations competing for resources, individuals fighting for dominance. But it also showed something else. Strangers helping each other after disasters, nations sending aid to their enemies, individuals sacrificing themselves for others. They form groups, K. Valix explained. Families, tribes, nations, alliances. Within these groups, they show remarkable cooperation and self-sacrifice. But between groups, they can be incredibly competitive and even violent. This creates a dynamic tension that seems to drive their development. Groups compete to develop better technology, better systems, better ideas. But they also share these developments, either through trade, conquest, or simple communication. The result is a species that is constantly pushing forward, constantly improving, constantly adapting. High Coordinator Missina pulsed with thoughtful light. You are suggesting that the very things that should have prevented their development actually enabled it. Precisely, Velox said. We have been thinking about this all wrong. We assume that civilization requires safety and stability, but humans show us another path. Their civilization was forged in danger. It was shaped by constant challenge. Every obstacle they faced made them stronger. Consider their technological development, he continued, changing the display again. Many of their greatest advances came from war. Their ability to split the atom, which now powers their spacecraft, was first developed as a weapon. Their global communication network began as a military project. Even their medical advances often came from the need to treat battle wounds. They turned destruction into creation, someone said quietly. Yes, Velox agreed. And this brings us to the most important question. Now that they have achieved spacefaring capability, what will they do? How will this species, shaped by billions of years of survival on a Deathworld, interact with the rest of the galaxy? The chamber fell silent. This was the question that had been in the back of everyone's mind since the discovery. A species this tough, this adaptable, this driven by competition and survival, could be either the greatest ally or the most dangerous enemy the galactic community had ever faced. We need more data, High Coordinator Missina decided. We need to observe them more closely. We need to understand their intentions before we make any decisions about contact. The committee agreed, but they all knew that such observation carried its own risks. Humans had already proven themselves to be observant and clever. It might not be long before they noticed they were being watched. What happened next would surprise everyone. The observation station floated at the edge of the Sol system, hidden behind the ice and rock of what humans called the Kuiper Belt. From this position, the research team could monitor human activity throughout their solar system while remaining undetected. At least, that was the plan. Kella had been assigned to the station as part of a rotating crew. She had grown more confident in the months since the research began, her initial fear of humans gradually transforming into a deep fascination. She spent hours watching their broadcasts, learning their languages, studying their art and music and stories. They are so strange, she said to Gorvax one day as they monitored a human entertainment program. They make stories about terrible things, disasters, wars, monsters, and they watch these stories for enjoyment. Gorvax clicked thoughtfully. Perhaps it is another form of their adaptation. By experiencing fear in a safe way, they prepare themselves for real danger. Maybe, Kella agreed. But they also make stories about hope, about overcoming challenges, about people helping each other against impossible odds. They seem to believe that anything can be achieved if they try hard enough. Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm. The station's detection systems were showing something unexpected. A human spacecraft was approaching, far from any of their established travel routes. Impossible, Gorvax said, checking the readings. They should not be able to detect us. Our stealth systems are far beyond their technological level. But the spacecraft kept coming, adjusting its course with clear purpose. It was heading directly toward them. Panic spread through the station. The research team had no weapons, no defenses. They had never expected to need them. Frantic communications were sent back to the Grand Assembly, but any response would take hours to arrive. Kella watched the approaching ship on the display, her fear returning stronger than ever. This was it, first contact, and they were completely unprepared. The human ship stopped at a safe distance, matching the station's orbit. For several long minutes, nothing happened. Then a signal came through, a broadcast on a frequency that no one had expected humans to know. Unknown vessel, a voice said in heavily accented but understandable galactic standard. "We know you have been watching us. We mean no harm. We would like to talk." The station's crew looked at each other in shock. Humans had learned their language. Humans had found a way to detect their hidden station. Humans had come to talk. Senior researcher Velox, who had arrived at the station just days before, made a decision. "Open a channel," he ordered. "We will speak with them." The communication link established, and for the first time, a human face appeared on the screens of the research station. She was a woman with dark hair and curious eyes, wearing what appeared to be a military uniform. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force," she said. "Thank you for responding." Velox struggled to maintain his composure. "I am Senior Researcher Velox of the Galactic Science Council. How did you find us? How do you know our language?" Captain Chen smiled. A gesture that the researchers had learned indicated friendliness in humans, though it showed teeth in a way that reminded some species of predator displays. "We have been aware of your observation for several months. Your technology is impressive, but your probe network left a pattern in the background radiation that our scientists eventually noticed. As for the language, we intercepted some of your communications, and our linguists worked very hard." "Months," Velox repeated, his colors cycling through shades of disbelief. "You have known about us for months and you did not react." "We wanted to understand your intentions first," Chen explained. "We watched you watching us. We learned what we could about who you are and why you came. We debated among ourselves about what to do. Some wanted to confront you immediately. Others wanted to wait longer. But eventually we decided that the best approach was simply to talk." This was not what anyone had expected. The models for first contact with a Deathworld species had predicted aggression, fear, or panic. Instead, the humans had observed, analyzed, and chosen a measured response. "Why?" Kella asked before she could stop herself. "Why talk? Are you not afraid of us?" Captain Chen turned her attention to the young researcher. "Afraid? Maybe a little. The unknown is always a bit scary, but we have learned something important in our history. Being afraid does not mean you have to be hostile. Sometimes the best way to deal with fear is to face it, to learn about what frightens you, to try to understand." "We know you have been studying us," Chen continued. "We have been studying you too. We know there is a larger galactic community out there. We know that by your standards, our world is considered extremely dangerous. We know that our development is considered impossible by your science." She leaned forward, her expression becoming more serious. "We want to join that community. We have spent our entire history fighting each other, fighting our environment, fighting for survival. We are tired of fighting alone. We believe we have something to offer the galaxy, and we believe the galaxy has things to offer us." Velox was silent for a long moment. Everything about this interaction was challenging his assumptions. "What do you have to offer?" he finally asked. "Our perspective," Chen said. "Our experience. We have survived things that your species cannot imagine. We have learned lessons that can only be learned through struggle. And we have developed technologies and approaches that might never occur to those who have not faced the challenges we have faced. But more than that," she added, "we offer our willingness to help. Your reports, the ones we intercepted, suggest that many species in the galaxy see threats on the horizon. We are very good at dealing with threats. It is what we have done for millions of years. Let us help." The conversation continued for hours. Captain Chen answered every question with patience and honesty. She did not hide the darker parts of human history or pretend that her species was perfect. She acknowledged their capacity for violence, but also demonstrated their capacity for compassion, cooperation, and growth. When the communication finally ended, the research team was left in a state of wonder. They had expected many things from first contact with humans. This was not among them. Kella found herself thinking about something Captain Chen had said near the end of their conversation. When asked what humans wanted most from joining the galactic community, Chen had given an answer that no one expected. "Friends," she had said simply, "we have been alone in the universe for so long. We want to know that we are not alone anymore. We want to meet others, learn from them, share with them. We want friends." For a species forged in the fires of a Deathworld, it was a surprisingly gentle wish. The Grand Assembly was in session once more, but this time the atmosphere was very different. Instead of confusion and fear, there was a cautious optimism that had never before been associated with a Deathworld species. Senior researcher Velox stood at the podium, but he was not alone. Beside him, displayed on a holographic screen, was the image of Captain Chen. "The human delegation has requested formal recognition," Velox announced. "They wish to join the Galactic Council as a provisional member." The debate that followed was intense. Many species remained afraid of humans. The Warmlings argued that a species from such an extreme environment could never be trusted. The peaceful singers worried that human aggression would spread to other worlds. The collective mind questioned whether beings so focused on individual survival could ever truly cooperate with others. But others spoke in favor of acceptance. The thinking trees noted that human philosophy showed a deep concern for ethics and the well-being of others. The warriors of Crix, one of the few species that had evolved on a moderately dangerous world, expressed respect for human resilience. Professor Zeleth, having studied human biology extensively, argued that their adaptability made them potentially valuable allies. The deciding moment came when a delegate asked Captain Chen directly, "How can we trust a species that has caused so much suffering to its own kind?" Chen's response was thoughtful. "You are right that we have hurt each other. Our history is full of terrible things, wars, genocides, cruelties that we are deeply ashamed of. But that same history is also full of people who fought against those evils, people who sacrificed everything to protect others, people who chose kindness when cruelty would have been easier." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "We do not ask you to trust us blindly. Trust must be earned, but we ask for the chance to earn it. Judge us by our actions going forward, not just by our past. We have learned from our mistakes. We are still learning. We want to be better." The vote was close, but in the end, humanity was granted provisional membership. They would be watched closely, their actions monitored, but they were no longer alone. In the months that followed, humans began to prove themselves. When a plague struck one of the outer colony worlds, human medical teams were among the first to arrive. Their experience with disease, gained through countless epidemics on Earth, proved invaluable. They developed treatments in weeks that would have taken other species years. When a massive asteroid threatened the homeworld of the Flotians, human engineers proposed a solution that no one else had considered. Instead of trying to destroy the asteroid or push it away, they suggested capturing it and redirecting it to a stable orbit where its resources could be mined. They had been thinking about such things for decades, they explained. Preparing for threats from space was just part of living on Earth. Kella had been assigned as a liaison to the human delegation, a role she had not expected but had come to love. Working with humans was unlike anything she had experienced. They were intense and driven, but also warm and welcoming. They made jokes, told stories, and seemed genuinely interested in learning about her world and her people. "I do not understand," she said to her human colleague, a young man named David, one day. "You come from a world of constant danger. You have every reason to be guarded and suspicious, but you are so open." David laughed, a sound that Kella had come to find pleasant rather than threatening. "Maybe that is exactly why we are open," he said. "When life is short and dangerous, you learn to value connections. You learn that you cannot survive alone. You learn to trust, even when it is risky, because the alternative is isolation." He grew more serious. "We spent so long being afraid of each other. Different countries, different cultures, different beliefs. We wasted so much time and energy on fear and conflict. When we finally reached the stars and realized that we were not alone in the universe, something changed. Suddenly, all those differences seemed so small. We were all just humans together in a very big galaxy. The discovery of alien life united us, Kella realized. In a way, yes, David agreed. It gave us a new perspective, a bigger picture. We still argue and disagree, but we also understand now that we are all in this together, not just as humans but potentially as members of a galactic community. This conversation would prove prophetic. A year after humanity's provisional membership began, the galaxy faced a crisis that would test everyone. A species from outside known space appeared at the borders. They called themselves the Devourers, and their name was accurate. They consumed everything in their path: worlds, resources, entire civilizations. They had destroyed dozens of species before anyone in the Galactic Council had even known they existed. The response from most member species was panic. Emergency sessions were called. Defense plans were proposed and rejected. Arguments broke out between those who wanted to fight and those who wanted to flee. Through it all, the humans remained calm. They had faced existential threats before. They had stared into the void and refused to blink. While others panicked, the humans planned. Captain Chen, now promoted to Admiral, addressed the Grand Assembly. "We have analyzed the Devourers," she said. "They are dangerous, but they are not invincible. They have weaknesses. They can be stopped." "How?" demanded the Flotian delegate. "They have destroyed civilizations far older and more advanced than ours." "Those civilizations were not prepared," Chen replied. "They had never faced a threat like this. They did not know how to respond to an enemy that could not be reasoned with. But we do. We have been preparing for threats like this for our entire history." She laid out a plan. It was bold, risky, and required levels of cooperation that the Galactic Council had never achieved. It required species to work together, to share resources and technology, to trust each other with their very survival. "This will not be easy," Chen acknowledged. "Some of us will not survive, but if we stand together, if we fight together, we can win. We can save the galaxy." The silence that followed seemed to last forever. Then, one by one, the delegates began to speak. They agreed to the plan. They agreed to follow human leadership. They agreed to put aside their fears and differences and stand together. For the first time in history, the galaxy was truly united. And at the center of that unity was a species that should never have existed. The war against the Devourers lasted 3 years. It was the most devastating conflict the galaxy had ever known. Worlds fell. Species were pushed to the brink of extinction. The losses were terrible beyond measure. But the alliance held. Led by human strategists who had studied warfare for thousands of years, the combined forces of the Galactic Council learned to fight in ways they had never imagined. They learned to adapt, to improvise, to turn defeats into opportunities. They learned the human way of war, which was not just about destruction but about survival, about protecting what mattered, about never giving up no matter the odds. The final battle took place in a star system far from any inhabited world. The Devourer fleet, though diminished by years of fighting, was still massive. The Allied fleet was smaller but determined. They had come too far to fail now. Kella was on the command ship, serving as a communications officer. She had come a long way from the frightened junior researcher who had first learned of humanity. She had fought beside humans, laughed with them, mourned with them. She had seen them at their worst and their best. She understood them now in a way that few of her species ever would. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge, watching the enemy fleet approach. Her face showed no fear, only grim determination. Around her, officers from a dozen species worked together with the smooth efficiency that had taken years to develop. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she broadcast to the fleet. "We have fought a long time for this moment. We have lost friends, family, entire worlds, but we have also gained something. We have become something new, something the Devourers never expected. We are not just an alliance of convenience. We are not just separate species fighting for our own survival. We are a community. We are partners. We are friends. And today, we show the universe what that means. The battle was fierce. Ships were destroyed on both sides. At one point, it seemed like the Devourers might break through the Allied lines. But every time they gained an advantage, the Allies adapted. They changed tactics, covered each other's weaknesses, fought as one. When the last Devourer ship was destroyed, a cheer went up that could be heard across the entire fleet. Species that had never even communicated before the war celebrated together. The impossible had been achieved. The galaxy was saved. In the aftermath, as the debris was cleared and the wounded were treated, Admiral Chen found Kella standing at a viewing port, looking out at the stars. "Quite a day," Chen said, standing beside her. "Quite a war," Kella replied. "I never thought I would see anything like this. My people, we never imagined we could fight. We never imagined we would need to." "But you did," Chen said. "You fought as bravely as anyone. Your communications work saved thousands of lives." Kella turned to look at the human admiral. "I learned from you, from all of you. You taught us that fear does not have to mean weakness, that we can be more than we thought we were." Chen smiled. "And you taught us that we are not alone, that there are others in the universe worth fighting for, worth being better for." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. The years that followed were ones of rebuilding and growth. The alliance that had formed during the war did not dissolve with peace. Instead, it grew stronger. Species that had once been strangers became partners. Trade flourished. Knowledge was shared. A new era began for the galaxy. Humanity's place in this new era was secure. They were no longer the mysterious Deathworld species that scientists could not explain. They were the species that had united the galaxy, that had led the fight against annihilation, that had shown what was possible when different beings worked together. The Grand Assembly met to formalize what everyone already knew. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities. It was a moment of celebration, but also of reflection. Senior researcher Velox, now one of the most respected scientists in the galaxy, gave a speech that would be remembered for generations. "When we first discovered humanity," he said, "we could not understand how they existed. Our science said they were impossible. A spacefaring civilization from a Class 7 Deathworld violated everything we thought we knew about how life and intelligence develop. We were wrong," he continued. "Not about the dangers of their world, not about the challenges they faced. We were wrong about what those challenges meant. We thought that extreme environments prevented the development of civilization. Instead, we have learned that they can drive it forward. Humans are not civilized despite their world. They are civilized because of it. Every obstacle they faced made them stronger. Every disaster they survived taught them to be better. Every enemy they fought gave them new skills and new knowledge. And when they reached the stars and found us, they did not see enemies to conquer. They saw potential friends. They saw a larger community to join and to serve. They saw an opportunity to use everything they had learned, everything they had become, to help others." He paused, looking around the chamber at the gathered representatives of 100 species. "They have changed us," Velox said. "They have shown us new possibilities. They have taught us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. They have taught us that cooperation does not require similarity, but only shared purpose. They have taught us that the universe is full of wonders we have not yet imagined." We asked ourselves how a Deathworld species could achieve spacefaring civilization. Now we know the answer. They achieved it the same way they have achieved everything else, through stubborn determination, through endless adaptation, through the refusal to accept that anything is impossible. "And through something else," he added, his colors shifting to show deep emotion. "Through hope. Despite everything they have faced, despite all the darkness in their history, humans have never lost hope. They believe in tomorrow. They believe that things can get better. They believe in each other. That is perhaps their greatest gift to us, not their technology or their tactics or their resilience, their hope, their unshakable belief that the future can be bright. The chamber erupted in applause. A sound that transcended species as beings of every kind expressed their agreement and their gratitude. In the human delegation, Admiral Chen stood with tears in her eyes. Beside her, David and the other human representatives looked equally moved. They had come so far from that small blue planet. They had overcome so much, and they had found what they had always been looking for. They had found their place among the stars. They had found friends. They had found a larger purpose. And the galaxy had found something it had not known it was missing. A species that should not have existed, that defied all logic and science, that had emerged from a world of constant danger to become a beacon of hope for everyone. Humanity had arrived, and the universe would never be the same. The story of how a Deathworld species achieved spacefaring civilization would be told for millennia to come, but it was no longer a scientific mystery to be solved. It was a legend to be celebrated, a reminder that the impossible was just another challenge waiting to be overcome. A reminder that in the darkest corners of the universe, hope could still be found. And sometimes, hope came from the most unexpected places.